My boyfriend drank the last of my groceries and told me I should learn how to budget better. He said it from my couch, in my apartment, with my remote in his hand and my electricity running the TV I barely watch. Jaden and I have been together for almost 2 years. When I got my own apartment at 19, he started coming over every day. Not most days. Every single day. I'd get home from work, shower, and by the time I stepped out, he'd be sitting on the couch like he'd been planted there. At first I loved it. Before I moved out, he used to say seeing me too much was overwhelming. Suddenly he couldn't stay away. I thought something changed. Something did change. I just didn't realize it was my grocery bill. I buy food every 2 weeks. Enough for one person. Within a week, half of it was gone. I'd buy a case of drinks and it'd disappear in days. I'd stock the fridge on payday and open it the following Monday to find bare shelves and an open jar of pickles. One night he ordered us a pizza. I said grab me a water. He grabbed himself one of my sodas. Then a second. Then he got up for a third. And I said, no, those are mine and I want them to last. He clenched his jaw and said, what are you, my mom? I said no. I'm the person who paid for them. He didn't talk to me for 2 hours. In my apartment, my electric bill jumped $70. He was there when I wasn't, showering, leaving lights on, running the TV for hours while I was at work. I started doing the math. He was basically living with me without paying a cent or sleeping there. So I asked him to move in, split the bills, make it official. He said, no. I asked why. He said he wanted to finish school. I said he wasn't enrolled. He missed the deadline. He went quiet. Then he said he didn't want to live in an apartment. He wanted a house. I said we were 19. Then he finally told me the truth. I just don't want to move out. I like having no responsibilities. I stared at him. His mom paid for his car, his gas, his clothes. She did his laundry. He worked with her part-time and kept every dollar for himself. He'd show me his bank balance sometimes like he was flexing. Meanwhile, I was counting cans in my pantry to make sure I'd eat till Friday. I told him if he wasn't going to contribute, then he couldn't come over every day. We'd hang out at his place more. He'd need to call before showing up. He agreed. Then he came over the next day, and the day after, and every day that week like the conversation never happened. I let it slide because I loved him. Because 2 years meant something. Because the version of him that talked me through the worst night of my life when I was 17 still lived somewhere in my memory, and I kept hoping he'd come back. Then last Tuesday happened. I came home, and my kitchen was a mess. Soda cans on the counter, paper towels everywhere, crumbs on the stove. My cat was batting a wrapper across the floor. Jaden was in the living room on his phone. Didn't even look up. I said, did you eat here today? He said, yeah. I said, did you clean up after yourself? He said he'd get to it. I looked at the kitchen and back at him and said, you've been here all day in my apartment, eating my food, using my electricity, and you couldn't wipe down a counter. He sat up and said, you're always nagging me about something. You sound like my mother. I said, your mother does everything for you. That's the problem. He got quiet. Then, he said the thing that ended it. Maybe you shouldn't have moved out if you can't afford it. My face went hot. I moved out because I had no choice. My parents relapsed. I was living with my sister on a mattress on her floor. I got this apartment because I had to survive. I work full-time. I pay every bill myself. I am building a life from nothing at 19, and this man who has never paid a single bill in his existence told me I couldn't afford it. I walked to the kitchen drawer, grabbed my spare key, and held out my hand. Give me yours. He laughed. You're being dramatic. I didn't blink. Key, now. He handed it over. Then he said, you know, it feels like we're in 2 different places. I said we are. I'm in my apartment that I pay for. You're leaving. He stood up, grabbed his jacket. At the door, he turned around and said, you're going to regret this. You're going to be alone. I looked at him standing in my doorway, the doorway I earned, and said, I've been alone this whole time. The only difference is now I get to keep my groceries. He left. I locked the door. I sat on my couch in the silence and realized it was the first time in months the TV wasn't on. The fridge hummed. My cat jumped in my lap. I opened a soda. Drank the whole thing slow. Nobody reached for it.
According to my belief, stop letting partners freeload on your space, food and bills. Take back your key and your peace the moment they treat your home like a free hotel.